After a tiring day of work, my mind was set on two things: relaxing and eating something delicious. Working 9 to 5 drains your energy, so cooking something nice seemed like the perfect way to end the day. I decided to stop by the supermarket I always go to, the one close to home that has a bit of everything. It was one of those Tuesdays when the whole world decides to go shopping at the same time. The parking lot was chaos, full of cars trying to find a spot. Inside, the situation wasn't any different. A crowd just off work, like me, filled the aisles. But all right, I was already there, so let's make this quick. I grabbed a cart and started my mission. Bread, cheese, some spices, and, of course, I couldn't forget a dessert. I had a mental list of what I needed and went straight to the point. Even with the store full, I navigated the aisles well, familiar with them by heart. 20 minutes later, I was ready to face the self-checkout. This part is always a test of patience, especially with the store packed. But everything went smoothly. I scanned my items, paid, and left relieved, thinking about the dinner I was going to prepare. The way back was smooth. I only stopped at the gas station, which was when I realized, where's my wallet? After a mini heart attack, I searched the entire car and found nothing. The last time I saw it was when I paid for my groceries. My stomach dropped. Did I drop it? Did someone take it? I called the supermarket on my way back home, hoping for a miracle. No wallet here, they told me. What a blunder on my part. I arrived home feeling down, thinking about the loss and the hassle of canceling the cards. But there it was, on the doorstep, my wallet. For a second, I felt relieved, until I saw it had been cleaned out. The cash and credit card were gone. The debit card, untouched. I rushed to cancel the credit card before it turned into a party on my behalf. That's when things got weird. How did the wallet end up here? No one knew my new address. It was all under the old one. I started to wonder if it was someone I knew. But why take the money and the card and then return the wallet? It was a time of learning and hard work when I, still in university, accepted the challenge of working as a night restocker at Supermarket Grand Adventure, the largest and most renowned establishment in the rural area where I lived. My shift started as soon as the supermarket closed, at 10 p.m., extending until 3 a.m., when I finished restocking the shelves for the next day's operation. The job was solitary, performed in pairs, alternating between me and one of my colleagues, Terry or Alfonso. That specific night, it was supposed to be me and Terry. I arrived at the supermarket and entered through the back door, where I would begin the night's work. I started with the bread and nuts aisle, making sure the oldest products were at the front and the newest at the back. Strangely, I saw no sign of Terry. Concerned, I went to the employee area, but he wasn't there. I left the back door slightly open for him, with a wedge, and returned to my work. 30 minutes passed without a sign of Terry, so I went back to check the back, noticing the door was closed and the wedge outside. Intrigued, I called Terry, who, with a sleepy voice, informed me he was sick and wouldn't come. The chill that ran down my spine wasn't from the night's cold. Someone had removed the wedge from the door. Terry suggested it might have been the wind, but I knew something wasn't right. With my cell phone off, I did a quick inspection but found no one. However, the feeling of unease persisted. That's when, returning to my work, I heard a loud noise from the other side of the supermarket. Someone was there with me. Upon investigating, I saw, at the end of the aisle, a man dressed in black cross my field of vision and disappear among the shelves. My heart raced. There was something deeply wrong with that scene. I tried to rationalize, thinking it might be a substitute for Terry that my boss forgot to mention. I called out to him, but instead of a response, I found the man waiting for me in one of the aisles, his face partially hidden, mouth slightly open, waving for me to come closer. His gaze and silence were disturbing. I backed away, deciding this was beyond my responsibilities. I went out to the parking lot, called my boss, and explained the situation. He suggested I try to expel the intruder or call the police. I chose the latter, waiting in my car for the authorities to arrive. I accompanied the officer inside the supermarket. When we found the man, he didn't resist arrest, but his behavior was bizarre. His constant smile and fixed gaze on me, as he licked his lips, immediately repulsed me. The only words he uttered were in response to the officer, saying he was looking for a little snack. The way he looked at me, even handcuffed, left a memory I will never forget. Our life in the quiet town where I live with my family has always been filled with simplicity and love. I am Isabel, mother of 3 wonderful children, aged 10, 7, and 3, and wife to Lucas, a tireless worker at a technology company. Our Italian heritage leads us to value meals full of flavor and tradition, meaning our trips to the market are frequent and essential. Less than a year ago, when I was still 39, a routine night shopping turned into something I would never forget. That night, I realized I was late for the shopping and decided to go to the New Moon Market, a place almost deserted at that hour, as it was close to closing time. With Lucas at home taking care of the little ones, I had the rare opportunity to go to the market alone, a luxury, in my view. As I quickly moved through the aisles, collecting items from my list, a touch on my shoulder startled me. I turned to find a man with tan skin, wearing a cap, red hoodie, and jeans. He apologized for the scare and asked for information about a package of chips he had seen in my cart. Kindly, I took him to where I had found the product, but he seemed more interested in chatting than in the chips themselves. After an unexpected compliment on my appearance, I tried to distance myself, claiming the need to continue my shopping before the market closed. However, he continued to follow me, staying always nearby, increasing my discomfort with every minute. Upon finishing my shopping and heading to the checkout, I noticed he was closely following me. Although he no longer tried to engage in conversation, I felt his gaze on me, increasing my anxiety to leave. Back in the parking lot, as I unloaded my groceries, I saw him again, watching from a distance, inside an old car. I hurried back home, but relief only came when I noticed no car was following me. Upon arrival, I told everything to Lucas, who immediately went to check the street, but the man had disappeared. We thought the episode had ended there, but we were wrong. The following weekend, we were startled by suspicious noises in the backyard. Lucas, armed with a baseball bat, spotted a figure trying to open our gate. The intruder fled upon being seen, in the same old car from the other night. We called the police, who arrived quickly, but the man was never seen near our house again. Despite the relief, a sense of vulnerability remained with us. Months later, a surprise, an anonymous package with a set of Italian kitchen knives and a note that read, "So you always remember the flavor of Italy on your table. With admiration, a secret friend." My university life was proceeding with the normalcy and enthusiasm characteristic of youth. I was studying in a city far from my best friend, whom I'll call Clara for privacy reasons. Although we attended different universities and lived in different parts of the city, our friendship remained unshakable, sustained by shared experiences and a mutual promise of support, regardless of distance. Clara, a dedicated student, was in the midst of preparing for final exams when she found her refrigerator empty. Determined not to let a lack of provisions interfere with her study routine, she decided to take a break and go to the supermarket near her apartment. It was a large establishment, known for its variety and quality of products, where she intended to buy fruits, yogurt, and pasta. The afternoon gave way to evening, and twilight cast a veil of shadows over the city, turning the atmosphere into something more introspective. Clara spent about 15 minutes in the supermarket, absorbed in her choices, when a stranger approached her at the exit. The man, described by Clara as short, overweight, with a goatee and a wide, unsettling smile, tried to start a conversation, acting as if he knew her. Although Clara was polite and tolerant, she was also cautious with strangers. Immediately, she felt something was off. The man, appearing to be about 35 years old, displayed evident anxiety, his fingers twisting as he spoke. Without wasting time, he invited Clara to a coffee at a nearby establishment. She, surprised and uncomfortable, politely declined, stating she was not interested. The rejection seemed to deeply irritate him, causing him to insist even more. When Clara refused again, he reacted angrily, threatening that they would meet again soon, calling her by her real name. The revelation left Clara shocked and terrified, with no idea how the man knew her name. Concerned about the possibility of being stalked, Clara threatened to call the police. The man then walked away, but to Clara's horror, he got into his car and began to follow her. With her heart racing from fear, Clara used alternate routes to lose him and managed to get to her apartment before the night fell completely. Despite the fear and paranoia the incident caused her, Clara chose not to report the occurrence to the police, though she never forgot the man's face or the implicit threat in his actions. Fortunately, she never saw him again. The incident served as a grim reminder that even in familiar environments, we can encounter individuals who refuse to accept a no for an answer, imposing their presence and intentions in an intimidating manner. Clara's experience reinforced the importance of always being alert and protecting each other, keeping safety as a priority in our daily lives. But fate, in its inscrutable plot, reserved an unexpected conclusion for this story. Months after the incident, Clara received an anonymous letter in her apartment. Inside, there was a detailed confession, written by the man who had harassed her. He deeply apologized for the terror he had caused, explaining that at the time, he was under the influence of substances that altered his perception and behavior. He claimed that since then, he had sought help, now on a path of recovery and self-discovery. The letter ended with a promise that Clara would never have to face his disturbing presence again. When I entered university, I got a job at a supermarket, Super 24, known for its round-the-clock operation. At that time, at 20 years old, I never imagined I would find myself stuck on the graveyard shift, a journey feared by many. Unfortunately, my availability on Mondays and Wednesdays made my boss see me as the perfect candidate for these sleepless nights. One day, while checking my schedule, I found myself scheduled to work from Tuesday to Wednesday, from midnight to 8 a.m. The revelation was a shock, and despite the temptation to quit, financial necessity spoke louder. I decided to face this night as an isolated challenge, promising myself it would be the first and last time. Thus, I arrived at Super 24 at midnight, replacing my colleague Amanda. Half the lights were off, a measure taken to save energy, but, to my surprise, there was a considerable flow of customers doing their nighttime shopping. Around 1 a.m., however, the supermarket emptied, leaving only a disturbing silence. As the early hours progressed, I felt increasingly isolated and bored. I wondered about the presence of other employees, as it seemed surreal that they would leave a 20-year-old alone in control of the entire supermarket. During this period, I noticed the presence of a bald man, who seemed to be a manager, circulating near the cash registers. Carrying a bunch of keys and a backpack, his figure conveyed a certain authority. When I approached him with a question, he came over, asking if it was my first day. After explaining it was my first night shift, he asked me, without identifying himself, to organize the pallets in the warehouse, promising to take care of the front of the store. As I headed to the warehouse, I saw him fiddling with something near the entrance, possibly locking it. In the warehouse, I found Rob, wearing a manager's vest and introducing himself as the night manager. His reaction to my description of the bald man was confusion, stating he was the only manager on duty. Before we could investigate further, all the lights went out, plunging us into total darkness. Rob instructed me to stay in the warehouse while he checked the problem. Alone, I tried to distract myself with my phone but was interrupted by footsteps and an unfamiliar voice calling. It wasn't Rob, but the bald man, looking for me. In panic, I sneaked out of the warehouse, looking for Rob or any exit. Unable to find Rob and with the exit door locked, fear consumed me. Then Rob reappeared, unlocking the door with desperate speed and whispering for us to leave immediately. Once outside, he called the police, reporting the presence of an armed intruder attempting to rob the supermarket. I took refuge in my car, watching the arrival of the police and the subsequent search for the intruder, who had vanished before they could be apprehended. Despite the trauma, I didn't quit the job immediately, but I never worked the night shift again, after an agreement with my boss. I never imagined that a night job at the local supermarket would turn into a scene from a thriller. But here I am, months later, still trying to understand what really happened on those nights when fear became my shift partner. It all started off calm. I was in college, needed cash, and time to study during the day. The supermarket, large and always busy by day, turned into a completely different scene at night. It was quiet, somewhat gloomy, but nothing a guy like me couldn't handle. I even liked it, you know? It was just me, the shelves, and the background music they never turned off. 3 weeks into the job there, and I was already feeling like part of the furniture. That's when they hired Marty. I remember the first time I saw him, a skinny, somewhat awkward guy, with long, blonde hair that seemed unfamiliar with shampoo for quite some time. He wasn't much of a talker, but his eyes. Man, his eyes always seemed like they were following me. One night, I was restocking some cereals when I noticed him at the end of the aisle, staring at me intently. As soon as our eyes met, he disappeared as if he had never been there. I thought, okay, maybe it's just his way. But it happened several times, always looking at me in a way that sent shivers down my spine. There was a day things got really sinister. I was alone in an aisle, one of those super quiet nights, the kind you actually enjoy the silence. Suddenly, I saw Marty peeking at me from afar, creating a gap between the products just to be able to see me. It chilled me to the core. What the hell does this guy want with me? I thought. I decided I would try to talk to him, figure out what his deal was. Maybe the guy was just socially awkward, and I was making a mountain out of a molehill? But when I tried to start a conversation, Marty barely spoke. Just grunted, short responses. I stood there, trying, until I gave up. The guy clearly didn't want to chat. That's when things got really scary. I had gone to the stockroom to get more items to restock and decided to use the bathroom quickly. When I tried to leave, the door wouldn't open. After a lot of effort, I saw there was a cart full of boxes blocking the exit. This was Marty's doing, it couldn't have been anyone else. But why? What was going through his head? I confronted him, of course. But Marty denied everything and walked away, leaving me there with more questions than answers. The rest of the night was a test for my heart. I saw Marty everywhere, always hiding, watching me. I became so paranoid I could hardly focus on work. In the end, I never saw Marty again after that night. I later found out from a colleague that he had been fired and arrested for attacking our boss. The news didn't surprise me, but it left me wondering. What if I had been his next target that night? I always thought working at the local supermarket would be the perfect part-time job while attending university. Located in a quiet suburb in the United States, Sunnydale Supermarket offered that community vibe you see in movies, where everyone knows each other by name. But as autumn gave way to winter, the nights became longer, and an inexplicable sense of restlessness began to settle in. I worked the night shift, from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., restocking shelves and organizing them for the next day. The job was solitary, but I appreciated the silence, which allowed me to lose myself in my thoughts or listen to my favorite podcasts. However, a series of strange events began to transform my peaceful work nights into a real-life horror movie. It all started on a particularly cold night in November. The supermarket was deserted, except for the occasional night owl making last-minute purchases. I was in the canned goods aisle when I heard the sound of rapid footsteps behind me. I turned around, expecting to see a coworker or a late-night customer, but there was no one there. I thought it was just my imagination, a result of many hours of isolation, and continued with my work. But the sounds didn't stop. There were footsteps, whispers, and sometimes, the noise of cans being lightly touched or moved. Whenever I turned to look, the aisle was empty. I began to feel watched, an uncomfortable sensation that someone or something was always just out of my field of vision. One night, while restocking the dairy section, I clearly saw a shadow moving through the opposite aisle. It was the silhouette of a person, but when I ran to see who it was, I found the aisle completely empty. That night, the air turned cold, and a feeling of dread enveloped me so intensely that I decided to take a break in the stockroom, just to be among other employees. I talked to some colleagues about these experiences, expecting them to call me crazy, but to my surprise, I wasn't the only one to witness strange occurrences. Stories of shadows moving through the aisles, indistinct whispers, and products changing places without explanation began to circulate among us. There was a shared fear, a reluctant acceptance that something unnatural resided in the supermarket. The final straw happened the following week. I was restocking the beverage shelves when I heard a female voice whisper my name right behind me. The voice was clear, distinct, and absolutely terrifying, as I was alone in the aisle. I turned around quickly, but, as expected, there was no one there. Fear paralyzed me, and for the first time since I started working there, I felt a desperate urgency to escape. I couldn't continue my night's work. I informed my supervisor that I felt ill and needed to go home. As I hurriedly walked to the exit, I swear I heard a low laughter echoing through the empty aisles, as if something was amused by my fear. I still worked there, but I never returned to the night shift. The stories continue, and new night employees report similar experiences. The supermarket tries to keep it a secret, probably not to scare off customers or employees. But we all know that when the sun sets and the supermarket lights dim, we are not alone among the shelves. Hey everyone, we've reached the end of another video here on the channel. I hope you had fun and, of course, got that little chill down your spine from today's stories. I know, next time you go on that late night snack run, you'll remember to take an extra look down the aisles, won't you? Oh, and maybe even say hi to the employee restocking the shelves, just to be sure. But seriously, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like. It really helps us out here. And if you're not yet part of our horror family here on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss any of our new videos. Now, I'll be signing off here. Until next time, stay safe out there, and remember, it will always be a pleasure to be here with you.